Good morning, friends. Welcome to Thunder Ridge Homestead. We're doing a series here on homesteading head first, how to keep records on your homestead so that you can have the knowledge to make wise decisions, to get those goals and aspirations that you've always wanted your homestead to do. Most people, when they talk about having a homestead, they have goals in mind at the very beginning of the whole journey. They think to themselves, wow, it'd be so nice to have some chickens and raise my own fresh eggs. Or, wow, it'd be so nice to just be able to go out in the backyard and pick some tomatoes and some lettuce and make a salad. That would be so nice. And it'll be more healthy for my family. It'd be fun to try to do, to see, could I actually do that? Could I accomplish something like that? And they want to have benefit from it. But how do you know if what you're doing is actually being successful? A lot of times as we go along, people will kind of put those little goals to the side because it gets so busy in the moment, and they stop trying to attain the goals. And it's important to keep the goals you had originally in mind. Staying focused on your goals is a good idea. It might not be a bad idea to write them out, hang them up someplace where you can see them, in the barn, or in your office, or in the bedroom, so the first thing in the morning you wake up, you see what your goals are for your homestead. A lot of us are married or have a partner of some sort, and we want to bring that partner along. One of us has got the good idea, and the other one is kind of like, well, I don't know. And we always have this big convincing argument to tell them that this is going to be a good idea, and all the things we can accomplish by having, a homestead, having, animal projects or a garden or whatever it is, what we can accomplish. And we need to keep those goals in mind. So that's the first thing I want to talk about. The next thing I want to talk about, we've talked already about collecting data, and how, we've used everything from a little manila envelope to write down every time I buy a bag of, corn for the chickens, to keeping track of like how many eggs we raise on a calendar, things like that. Data collection is very important. You can do it, and I've given examples of animal stuff, but you can do it in other ways as well. One of the things that people ask commonly when they are first starting out or getting this whole idea, this homestead mindset, because I want to remind you once again, I firmly believe that homesteading has absolutely nothing to do with where you live. Homesteading and that whole idea is how you live. And there's going to be the family that's living in the, apartment in the middle of New York City or someplace like that where they have, very little contact with the outdoors, that can homestead. And how they can do that to start with, or at least they can follow the homestead ideas, they'll say to themselves, well, how can I save money on groceries? That's a perfect example. Or how can I save money on clothing? Or how can I save money on, whatever thing? How can I make bread myself? Am I able to do that? And they start off on the journey just by having those little ideas and those little fun thoughts. For some people, it's just learning to cook, For other people, it's going to be, really stretching out and, trying to be, quote, self-sufficient, which I don't think really anybody is able to do that, because, we live in community. I can be as self-sufficient as I want to be, and I'm going to have to buy needles, to do some sewing. I'm going to have to buy sewing needles from somebody who can manufacture them, because there's just no way I can make a sewing needle by myself. Just can't do it. I don't have the proper equipment. I don't have the time, the effort. I just can't do it. So there's going to be some items, or glass for my window, for example, or a glass jar. There's going to be things you're going to have to purchase from the community. So nobody's going to be totally self-sufficient, but maybe more self-reliant would be another goal you could do. Maybe I can grow all my own vegetables. I can, save money at the grocery store by canning up the basics that we use. And those are very good homestead idea and homestead goals for anybody starting out, no matter where you live. One of the first questions people might think about is when they're starting to think about a garden. Well, how many tomato plants do I need to grow to raise tomatoes for my whole family to eat? And that's a great question. And the way you're going to find that out is by collecting data. So the first thing you maybe need to do is when you buy tomatoes at the store, just start there. Every time you buy a can of tomatoes, put a little chart on your pantry or wherever you store your tomatoes, and it says canned tomatoes. And every time you buy a can of tomatoes, you put a dot, or a tally mark. And then maybe in a month, you can count how many tomatoes have you used in that month. Maybe you can multiply it by 12, and you can kind of get an idea of how many tomatoes your family eats. When I was a kid, here's another one of these stories of my past. My grandma is the one who kind of, did a lot of the raising of me. I call her Grandma Nettie. Some of you people will hear me talk about Grandma Nettie because she was, she was my mom, really. She was my idol. I loved my grandma. And she was raised, during the 30s. She was born in 1912, I think, and she was raised in the 30s and starting her family in the 30s when it was Depression, Depression era. And the wars were going on, and there was a lot of stuff going on back then, and it was hard times. And, rationing and all that stuff that happened during the wars made a huge impact on my grandma. Back in the days when there were not expiration dates on things, my grandma would buy a can of green beans, and she had a little marker, and she would write on the top of her green beans, 1973 or whatever, if that's when she bought the beans. And she'd write it on them before she'd put them away in the cabinet. And when I was a kid, I'm thinking, man, this old lady's crazy. She just writes dates on everything and keeps track of stuff like that. But what I didn't realize is that by her dating the cans of goods, she was actually rotating her pantry stock. Even back, like I said, that's what she did when I was growing up. I was a little bitty kid. I just didn't get it. And she knew if she had a can that was sitting in there for, a year, that it needed to be used. It shouldn't be just sitting there because it'll go bad eventually. Even commercially canned things don't live forever on your shelf. So you need to rotate your pantry stock or throw it away. Something. You need to get rid of it. There's no sense in having something sit there forever and ever and ever. And it was a good idea. And now that I'm old and weird, which kind of been weird for a long time, but now that I'm old and weird, I'm the one who's been writing down, when I buy things. And sometimes I'll have this little idea of, hey, how much toilet paper, like if I wanted to buy toilet paper, and not have to go to the store, oh, I'm out of toilet paper, what are we going to do? I want to have enough on hand. I need to find out how much toilet paper our family uses. And there was a point in time when I was writing down how, when I bought toilet paper, and I was using the calendar system that I've been talking about as one of the ways, and I would just say, bought toilet paper on the calendar. And I always bought the same size and the same kind, so I could kind of figure how much toilet paper our family was using. The funny part of the story is that my sister, who's not homesteader mentality, she thinks I'm just as crazy as I thought my grandma was. And she came over to visit, one time, and we had dinner together as a family and whatnot, and that's normal, but your family comes to visit. But what I didn't realize is later, when I was going back and writing down, how much toilet paper our family had purchased that month, there was this little note on my calendar that said, Sissy was here, used toilet paper, count may be off. And it said that on my calendar. So, they all think you're crazy when you're doing this. but it's worth doing, is what I'm trying to say. I have the best luck in record keeping with just tally sheets, just keeping tallies. And like I said, whether I'm writing, how many cans of green beans I've bought at the store, or whether I'm writing down how many jars of green beans I've canned, I have the best luck with the tally system. What I started doing as far as keeping records, it's hard to write things down on a calendar all the time or something. So sometimes I'll develop a sheet of paper and I would just have it. Once I got it developed, I would write down the stuff and then I would keep it. And I found out that, like, an example is tomatoes. Every year we grew tomatoes. And every year I canned tomatoes. And we would can, maybe at first it started just, it was like whole tomatoes in a jar. And then I was canning tomatoes in the jar and also tomato juice. Then I was canning tomatoes in a jar, tomato juice, and making my own salsa. And then the next year I added spaghetti sauce or pasta sauce or ketchup. I've made ketchup before, and I've made barbecue sauce before. And it was interesting because, maybe I made barbecue sauce one year and I had, tons of barbecue sauce left at the end of the year. And I know, hey, that's just crazy. I don't need to make, 27 quarts of barbecue sauce because our family does not eat that much. So what I did was I made a list of the things that I canned. I canned, the tomatoes and all the different kinds of tomatoes I canned. And I had a little lines on my paper that was like a pint, a quart, a half pint. And I would just ting, 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 when I would can, would be canning and be busy in the middle of summer, whenever. And I would just mark the little tally marks on. I've got this many quarts when I was putting them away. I've got this many quarts of sauce, this many quarts of juice, or this many pints of tomato sauce, or half pints of, sauce. And I could keep track from year to year, and that really helped. So that's just another means of collecting data. If I find out that, like, we used to can, my husband's family canned green beans in a quart jar. And that was great because they would always eat a quart of green beans. I found for our family, by keeping my little data and my tally marks, that it was better to can the green beans in a pint jar instead of quart jar. Because sometimes my husband and I would eat dinner and we would have green beans. Sometimes it would be my husband and I and my son and my daughter and her son and my other daughter and her husband and her daughter, and it would be like multiple people, or my sister would come over and use my toilet paper, and I would need more beans. Well, it's more efficient for me to open 2 pints or 3 pints of green beans, depending on how many people are coming over, than it was to open 1 quart every time and have leftover green beans in the refrigerator that I had to figure out a way to use up. So things like that you can learn from data keeping and tally marks. And you can really apply it to any part of your life. Your family is going to think you're weird for counting your toilet paper, but I find out that, how many rolls of toilet paper I need, and I can get, if I see it on sale, because it does go on sale, or you get coupons for things, hey, if I buy, 5 of these on sale, that will keep me for the rest of the year, and it's a good thing to do. It's a good thing to keep track of like that. And so this is how collecting data on simple data sheets it's another way to just, expand your horizons. And it's to get knowledge and to understand, to really use your head on this homesteading idea. It can be simple stuff, like I said, and you can be very, make your own sheets, make your own things. What is it you're curious about? Shampoo, do you find out that you go to the store and you buy shampoo for your family, and maybe they use, one type of shampoo everybody wants, and other person just wants this one specialty shampoo. Well, if you find the specialty shampoo on sale for, $3 off, you don't want to buy 15 bottles of it because that's going to last forever. But if it's the shampoo that everybody uses and you find a coupon for it, 15 bottles would be great purchase. So things like that is other ways that you can use data to Homestead head first. And like I said, so far we're just talking about little, making little ticks, little marks, just simple stuff. And it all adds up. It all helps you to be more wise in your planning of your home and your homestead. Homestead economics is another way to look at this. Keeping things cheaper. If you can find, canned corn on sale for 50 cents a can, and you know that your family will eat, a can every week for, the whole year, buying 52 cans of corn would be a good purchase for your family. If your family sees corn for 50 cents a can, and your family only eats corn once every 6 months, 52 cans of corn would go rotten in your camper or your pantry before you would finally get it used. So knowledge and wisdom, good planning, and it makes things go very smoothly. So I think that's going to be a real short, sweet one today about record keeping. Just developing things. You can get to the point to where it gets more and more extreme as you keep track of things. Another real quick thing I want to talk about on this same video is inventory. If you've ever worked at a store, like a retail store of some sort, you realize that they have those little people that come in once a year, and they've got little tablets on the side of their, side. They look like Spock on a mission on Star Trek. And they go through and they count, how many of each item is on the store shelf. How many white t-shirts do they have, and how many, bags of dog food do they have, and how many, whatever is available in the store on that day. They have a count. And if you're going to get into this whole homestead economics thing, a count once a year is not a bad idea. It's really not hard if you kind of wait until you've got a day when, before you've done a big shopping and you've gotten everything all kind of down, where you're kind of low on things. It's easy to do an original count on, say, how much canned goods you have in your cabinet. Don't wait until you get the 52 cans of corn on sale before you count them. Do it when you're just about out of corn, and then count everything on that day and see how much is in stock. That's a baseline. And when I do inventories at our house, and I try to do it once a year, it's a hard thing to do, but really, there should be at least one time a year that you take enough time to clean out your cabinets, your pantries, to organize things, kind of like I organize my shelves. There should be at least one time a year that you really take the time and do some deep cleaning. At least I hope you do, because if you don't, you've got a big mess on your hands. But going through and cleaning your cabinets is a good idea. Cleaning your refrigerator is a struggle for everybody, but it's a good idea. If you clean all the old stuff out, you wash the refrigerator out, you start fresh. The same with your deep freeze. If you've got a deep freeze, you need to have a day that you inventory what you've got on hand, and you clean out the old stuff, get rid of it, clean it up, organize it, put it back, and do that. Everybody who has a house, any kind of housekeeping at all, household, should have a day of inventory on every aspect of their food storage, or maybe their closet. Maybe you need to go through and say, okay, look, I've lost, 15 pounds, don't I wish, and these pants don't fit me anymore. Why are they still in my closet? And they just need to go. You need to purge. And everybody has that time. They need to do that. If you're cleaning out your pantry and you're cleaning out your cupboards and you go through it all, count it, write it down, and then from that point on, it doesn't matter if it's January the 1st or the 14th of May, it doesn't matter. Start from that point and count for the rest of the year. Whenever you buy anything and put in that cabinet, just write it down. It's not hard. it just takes a little consistency. And one thing I did that helped me a lot is I made, like I said, my little tally chart, and I pasted it with some tape on the inside of that cabinet door. Okay? And let's say maybe it's our soup cabinet where I keep the soup. And I have on here, you know, when I started off I had, you know, 4 cans of vegetable soup and 4 cans of mushroom soup and 4 cans of chicken noodle and 3 cans of tomato, okay? And those are the soups I had on hand. They're the ones I typically buy. I may have a few little blank spaces down below just in case I decide to go crazy and buy, you know, chicken gumbo instead of chicken noodle. But I would write those down and how many we had on hand. Then whenever I would use a can or whatever, I just ignored that. That's just, it was gone. But whenever I bought a can, I put it on the tally chart. So by the time the year was over with, I knew how many cans of chicken noodle soup we had bought. And then I knew how many we had to start with. And then when I counted again, when I cleaned that cabinet again, I knew how many were left over. You can take how many were left over and subtract it from that total, and you know how many. Little things like that, keeping track, keeping data on just, you know, multiple places in your house. And it's just a chart on the back of the, you know, inside the cabinet door. It's not, nobody's going to see it, nobody's going to worry. Maybe you're going to have a smart aleck sister that's going to write on your calendar that she used toilet paper that day, but you know, small price to pay for a little bit of knowledge. So thanks for watching. See you in a little bit.